Okay, so today's notes are on simplifying with the distributive property, and it'll be on section 4.4a, which we're going to have 4.4 be kind of its own mini unit. So this is the first lesson of the unit. Our content objective is going to be to simplify expressions using the distributive property, which you guys are probably familiar with several problems that look like this, but we're going to show you or practice multiplying binomials. Which brings us into our language objective, which will be to use the correct terminology when explaining how to simplify expressions, including binomial, trinomial, and FOIL method. So we're actually going to start with a couple quick checks to make sure you guys remember how to do the distributive property generally. So we have 3x times x minus 7 and negative 2x times x plus 1 minus 1. So try those ones on your own really quick. Pause it. I'm going to go over it now. So you hopefully remember that you're going to distribute the 3x into the other two terms in the binomial. So the binomial is something with two terms. So binomial, two terms, monomial, one term, and trinomial would be three terms, which we'll get to in a minute. But we distribute these in, and we get 3x squared. When we multiply 3x times x, 3x squared, and then 3x times negative 7 gives us negative 21x. So that's the solution for number 1. Now I'm going to distribute the negative 2x into each of these terms in the binomial. So I have negative 2x times x, I get negative 2x squared. And then I distribute it to the 1, I get negative 2x. And then I have the minus 1 on the end. So now I have a trinomial. I can't combine any of these because none of them are like terms. They have different exponents. So these are my simplified expressions from our quick check. Make sure you jot any questions you have on those because we'll be doing a lot of that stuff throughout this section. So now this is multiplying a monomial by a binomial. Now we're going to practice multiplying a binomial by a binomial. So a binomial is something that has two terms in it. So we're going to practice multiplying binomials, which we will use the FOIL method. That's an I. So our example we're going to start with asks us to simplify x minus 5 times x plus 3. So I'm going to multiply those two terms out. So the first step I'm going to do is multiply our first terms. And I'm capitalizing the F because I'm going to show you where FOIL comes from. So if I have x minus 5 times x plus 3, I'm going to multiply x times x, which is our first terms. So first terms, x times x is x squared. The second thing I'm going to do is multiply our outer terms. So outer, so x is outer, 3 is outer. So these are our two outer terms. O. So I'm going to multiply x times 3 and I get positive 3x. Now I'm going to multiply the inner, so I, inner terms. So inner would be the two in the middle. So these two are our inner terms. So negative 5 times x is negative 5x. And then I have my last term. So I multiply my last terms. So negative 5 and 3 are our L in FOIL. So first, outer, inner, last, that's the order in which we multiply these terms out. So I get negative 15 as my last term. So I did first, outer, inner, last, and then I'm going to, as my final step, combine like terms. So I end up with x squared, since that can't combine with either of these x's, but the two terms with just an x come next. So I have negative 2x when I combine 3x and negative 5x minus 15. So another key point here, you may have noticed, whenever you multiply two binomials, you will most of the time get a trinomial. So binomials often multiply to trinomials. So there are situations in which it'll cancel out, which we'll get to later in this unit. but oftentimes when you're multiplying a binomial, it results in a trinomial. All right, so now we're going to do some quick checks together. So the first one I have for you is x plus 2 times x plus 7. And the second one I want you to try is 2x minus 1 times x plus 3. So go ahead and try those two on your own following the FOIL method that we just did in our example. Pause it if you need to. I'm going to go over it now. So I do my first terms and I get x squared. I do my outer terms and I get plus 7x. I do my inner terms, I get plus 2x. And I do the last terms and I get plus 14. So first, outer, inner, last, and I combine my like terms, which are usually going to be the two middle terms with x, and I get 9x plus 14. And that is my simplified expression for the first one. Now I'm going to follow the same process for our second quick check. So I do first, I get 2x squared. I do my outer terms, I get plus 6x. I do my inner terms, I get negative x. And I do my last terms, and I get negative 3. I combine my like terms, and I get 2x squared plus 5x minus 3. And that is our solution for our second one. The last thing I want to do throws a little bit of a curveball. This is our last thing. It's another quick check. I want to see if you guys can figure it out on your own. But we have negative x plus 12 times x minus 3. So I think you guys will be able to reason through how you could do this, but try that one on your own. If you didn't quite know what to do, I'll go over it now. So there's actually two ways you can do this. So our associative property of multiplication tells us it doesn't matter in what order we multiply this -1 or negative sign and these two binomials. So I could either distribute, so if I have this, I could distribute my negative first and get negative x minus 12 times x minus 3, and then distribute out with my FOIL method. So I get negative x squared plus 3x minus 12x plus 36, and then combine my like terms and I get negative x minus 9 plus 36. So that's one way you could do it. If you prefer, you could also multiply your binomials first and get, if you just do your first, you get x squared. Do your outer, you get negative 3x. You do your inner, you get 12x. And your last, you get negative 36. Combine your like terms, you get x squared plus 9x minus 36, and then distribute your negative, and you get negative x squared minus 9x plus 36, which is the same solution. So it's not really any different than what we were doing before. You just multiply the negative in either as one of your first steps or your last step. The only thing you have to remember is the negative does not get distributed to both terms. That would be incorrect. There's only one -1 that's multiplied in. So make sure you don't multiply it into both. You only multiply it into the first binomial, or you save it till the end and then multiply it by the trinomial. All right, that's all for today. Make sure you write down any questions, comments, or concerns you have on this so we can go over it together in class.